Hey, what is up guys? My name is Cameron Gallagher from We Are Film, and today we're going over part 2 of our behind the scenes of our short film Fear Fall. This episode is all about production. So first and foremost, I want to give a huge shout out to Blackmagic Design as well as Lens Pro to Go. Blackmagic Design actually sent over their URSA Mini Pro G2 to actually shoot the short on. I ended up buying it because I loved it that much. And also Lens Pro to Go sent over a bunch of accessories. And a huge thanks to Greg and the whole team over there for helping us out. Now we're not sponsored by either of these companies, but be sure to give them some love down in the description below. So let's talk about production. So in the pre-production episode, we talked about how we're going to figure out how we're going to light and shoot everything in a timely manner, and one of the biggest things that we're going to do is obviously have to do a day for night. And this was actually the first thing we shot because it's really the horror portion of the entire short film. And one of the awesome things about the URSA Mini Pro G2 is that its native ISO is at 800, meaning we didn't have to have that much light to make it look as if it was a day for night. Now one of the problems is that my apartment is on a second floor, so we couldn't actually have any lighting outside of the house, so we had to light it inside and still make it look like it was moonlight. So I used my Aperture 300D with a giant softbox on there and a grid, and I boomed it up pretty high and actually set my white balance in the URSA Mini Pro G2 to 3200. Now again, we were shooting raw, so it didn't matter that much. So the walls of the actual room are white, meaning that a lot of it was going to bounce around, so I knew that I wanted to keep the Aperture 300D dimmed almost as low as I possibly could, so it was about 15%, and that allowed for a really nice, just sort of true moonlight look. Again, it's very soft, it's still far away, and because we didn't frame where you could see the window, we could easily black out the window with black plastic and fabric, and you weren't able to tell that the light wasn't actually coming from that window. So we shot everything on the URSA Mini Pro G2 in RAW 5:1 in 4.6K, but it's the 2:4:1 4.6K, so we're shooting for widescreen. I typically like widescreen. I love the way it looks, and you also save on some vertical real estate, so we ended up with more per CFast 2.0 card. One of the most important things in horror, and really any film, is the pacing. So one of the things that I really wanted to do when directing this actual scene was making sure that our pacing was slow enough to actually extend certain portions of tension. So we actually played out most of the scene from each different angle. Now this is typically called coverage, and although it can be a little bit boring, I didn't want to stray too far off of our coverage because I knew that we were going to really want to push that tension. So what we did was we played out every single shot from each angle throughout pretty much the entire scene, especially from her hearing the sounds, grabbing the actual flashlight, looking, and then getting up. And one of the easiest things to do when it comes to coverage is sort of an A, B, and master. So you have your master shots, of course, is a wide shot typically that maybe shows if you have two characters. But because of tension, we actually don't want to show too much of this. Sometimes not seeing things is actually more tension building. So in this case, we use a lot of the over-the-shoulder shot when showing what she's looking at in order to feel like we are in the space with her and we are almost her moving around the scene. So we actually shot a lot of it locked off until she actually got up and started to move towards the door. Reason being is we wanted the tension to move from this slow build-up to a sort of holding your breath tension as we're walking towards what we don't know is there. So for audio, we had a friend of mine, Tyler, actually running a boom. So he was actually running the Deity S Mic 2, boomed on a Rode boom pole, going into my Zoom H6. Now he ran audio the entire time for every single take, no matter if it was good audio or what, because you never know what you're going to be able to use later in post. Now one of the things that I actually do a lot during the filming is I actually call out certain commands sometimes when it comes to directing. So a lot of those are captured in the production audio, but this is why you actually get room tone. So per each room, you usually get 30 seconds of complete silence. That way, if I were to call out a command like be more scared or this or that, we can easily cover that up in the audio later. So again, Tyler ran that the entire time. He boomed everything. That way we made sure we had each sound for every single portion of the entire film. Now one of the things we did actually after was before our actress left, we actually had her walk around on the carpet, on the floor, move the bed sheets around. That way we had some extra Foley sounds from the actual day of that we could use later on. This is super important because sometimes, although adding Foley later on can be easy, typically the more true to the sound on the day is a lot better. Audio is one of the most important things, and I can't tell you how important it is to have someone running a boom the entire time and really getting good, whether it's dialogue or audio in any way, shape, or form. So if you have a friend, ask them if they can run the boom pole. Obviously, if you have an audio engineer or someone that you can have that knows audio, have them come in and help you out. So that's pretty much how the entire apartment and bedroom scene actually went on. Again, it was just pretty much one Aperture 300D, boomed up, we were running audio and camera. Pretty simple, straightforward. So the next thing in the apartment that we shot was actually the sort of final scene where the red light was coming in and out. I actually just went to Home Depot and I got a can light, and I bought a 4-way splitter so you could have 4 bulbs per one actual can light. I actually grabbed some red party lights that they have and I plugged those in and I used that for that effect. Now the reason why I actually use these tungsten style bulbs instead of an LED is because an LED typically steps down, so you see the light sort of chopping in and out and it's not very smooth. Where I actually use a DIY dimmer that I made years ago, and we could easily just dim that red light down and up. It was very smooth and it felt natural. Now on the red light portion of the actual noose hanging down and all that kind of stuff, that was actually an RGB light that was above us, just aiming straight down. That wasn't even pulsating, we were just kind of using it as more of an effect. And that was actually something we shot later, but I'll explain that more in the post-production episode. So the actual dialogue scene was pretty simple. We had one light just boomed up on the side, sort of giving us our harsh key towards the window. We shot pretty close in order to not show the location, which was also my apartment, hoping that it would kind of maybe double as like a psychologist's office or maybe something like that. But that was pretty straightforward. We just wanted to make sure that we were getting good, clean audio because we knew that more of the focus was her performance and some of the B-roll that we were shooting later. And that brings us to the outdoor B-roll section. So we got super lucky because in New York in fall, sometimes it rains, sometimes it's super sunny, sometimes it's cloudy, and we ended up with a cloudy day. And cloudy days, if you don't know, are the absolute best time to shoot because you have one gigantic softbox. So we really didn't have to use any lighting modifiers other than a couple times. I actually just used a white poster board I got from Staples as a bounce, and that was just as simple as that. So almost everything that we shot outside was actually in 60 frames in 4K in widescreen on the URSA Mini Pro G2. Of course, it does 120 frames, but I didn't think it was totally necessary for that, and everything was handheld. Now, one of the things about the URSA Mini Pro G2 is there is no image stabilization, so just keep that in mind. In a perfect world, I would have had maybe a heavier shoulder rig to add just a little extra weight to sort of keep things a little bit smoother, but one of the great things is because there is so much detail from the URSA Mini Pro G2 sensor, using image stabilization later on, especially in DaVinci Resolve, what I did ended up way nicer than I thought. We'll talk more about that in post-production, but I was really impressed with how well it could actually track that motion and sort of keep it looking a little steadier than I was. So a lot of these shots were pretty much just on the go, and again, Tyler was booming all of these to make sure to get the ambient sound. Even though we didn't use most of that sound, it was still good to have in case later on we did decide to use them. So we actually shot at local parks and on just one of the side streets, and that's one of the best things that you can do when you don't have a great location is look around when it comes to parks or different things like that if you can shoot outside, because of course those are open to the public, so you're allowed to shoot there. Now granted, you're technically supposed to have a permit, but you know, we had a permit. But again, open to the public, outdoor places like parks, things like that are a great place to shoot if you can or if it's allowed. One of my favorite parts of actual production is the actual directing. That is working with the actors or actresses, getting in there and really honing in their performance. So if you're the one directing, obviously your main goal is make sure that you get the performances that you want to obviously convey the character, convey the emotion, the plot, whatever you may need, as well as allow for a practical standpoint from your edit later on. So a lot of people always ask, how many takes should you do of something? And this really depends. Typically, I always do at least 2 takes because you always need a safety. You always need some type of backup. Unless, of course, there's some reason you can only do it once. I also have a rule of thumb, though, is if it gets to be in the 3, 4, or 5 take area, there's 2 things either going on. One, there's a technical issue that we need to figure out, obviously, that is holding us back from getting the shot. Or the other is that maybe there is something that the actor or actress isn't understanding about the character or about the scene, and that's why they're maybe not giving the performance that you want. Obviously, you as the director, your job is to direct the action in order to pull the performance from them. So honestly, if it gets 4 or 5 takes deep and you're not happy with the performance, it's probably more on you. Now, maybe it was because you casted the wrong actor or actress, but of course that's a pre-production thing. We were incredibly grateful to work with Riley Button. She is an incredible actress, and one of the things that she just does so well is she can just snap in and out of character incredibly well. One of the things that we had done is we had really talked about beforehand, of course, in that pre-production, what the character was about and sort of how the character should react. Now, of course, Riley being a great actress just allowed for a much easier on-the-day experience, so that way we were just dialing in more of the practical and nuances of each take. She knew what she had to do, she knew the script, she knew what was going on, and then I was just helping dialing in things like pacing, action, and obviously the physical movement. And to me, that's what directing is all about. If you do that pre-production beforehand, it should just be all about the practicality and maybe the small nuances that you have on set. One of the big things about production that you want to think about, because a lot of times short films and smaller productions will think about this, is getting your actors and actresses and crew food. You want to make sure that everyone's fed. Just make sure that you have a lot of different options, as well as take into consideration any dietary restrictions. Maybe someone can't eat pizza and then you order pizza. It's just kind of rude, and it's something you don't want to do on set because, again, you want to have a good experience for everyone. So make sure that you're thinking of these things beforehand, so that way on production, everything goes smooth. You need to drink water during production. It's just one of the biggest things. If you get dehydrated, or if an actor or crew member gets dehydrated, it will cause some serious problems. I've seen it before. It's happened to me a bunch of times. I don't drink water, I'll get too into it, and then all of a sudden you're dying of thirst and you're dehydrated. So keep those things in mind. Again, they're those production things that people forget about, but they are super, super important. One of the last things about production is to make sure that you are keeping to a good schedule by making sure that you are being efficient. You don't want to be caught sitting around doing nothing or on your phone or anything like that, because again, if you are the leader of the production, whether you're the director or sort of the producer, if you are doing this is going to set a bad example, of course, but not only that, you're going to probably piss off the other people on set because it's their time, and especially if they're helping you out for free, that's something you never want to do, is take advantage of people. So make sure you're always being considerate of everyone on set, because again, that is the biggest thing. If everyone has fun and you make a good project, everyone goes home and it's a great project at the end of the day. So anyway guys, this has been episode 2 about the production of Fear Fall. I'm very excited to talk about episode 3, which is the pre-production. We're going over editing, sound, music, all that kind of stuff. So anyway guys, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys later.